Alrighty guys, welcome to our first official artwork. What we're gonna do together is we are going to draw this eye together. So what I want you to do is find a piece of paper. I just got a scrap piece of watercolor paper. You can find printer paper, you can draw in a notebook, on line paper. It doesn't matter to me as long as it's a piece of paper. You'll also need a pencil of any kind. Now, if you have art pencils, the two pencils that I use are 5B, this is for shading, and then I use regular B for my lighter work, like my outlining and my details. You might also pick an H, an HB, or a 2H to do your outlining, and you might want to perhaps do a slightly less intense shadow like a 2B or a 3B for your shading. The reason why I picked fairly dark ones is so you could see it on the camera. So you need a piece of paper, you need a pencil, you need an eraser, and I want you to follow along as you're doing it. What I want us to pay attention to is shadows. So here's our eye that we're gonna draw. A lot of us have the misconception, well, this is the white part of the eye, so it needs to be white. But we gotta use our critical thinking. What I printed out was a high contrast version. The only parts that are really white are these highlights right here. Everything else is fairly dark. We wanna focus our shadows here within the eye, up here on the top of the lid, then here within the tear duct. Really intensify those shadows. That's what we're working on today. So we're gonna follow along. On your mark, get set, go. Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna use a slightly lighter pencil called my B pencil. Now this can be whatever pencil you have, just if you're being fancy, use a B or an H, or an HB, something on the lighter scale. I'm gonna start with a very simple shape, so I'm just getting the idea. And what you're gonna notice is, again, I'm drawing lightly. Here goes the little tear duct right here. When I'm drawing and I begin mapping out my idea, what I like to do is be very light and soft as I'm sketching out. And I'm picking up my pencil often. That sort of prevents me from getting stuck in one spot and just saying, oh, there's my line, that's where I'm gonna stick with, and I don't wanna erase it. If I give myself a bunch of lines, then I have a bunch of lines to choose from, and I can pick the best one. Let's do the eyelid over here. Notice how there's sort of a crease right here, so there's a little angle point. Put that in there. Now let's go for the inside of the eye. Now here's something that I do that's called point to point. To make sure that I'm giving enough space, I like to measure using my fingers to see if I did it too big or too small. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure the length between the iris and the cornea and that pupil right here, or the iris and the pupil. I'm gonna compare that to this shape right here. So I got iris to pupil should be a little bit bigger than this shape right here. So I'm gonna put my pupil. I'm gonna see if I did that right. Iris to pupil, a little bit bigger. Okay, that looks good. That's called point to point. That's to make sure that everything's sort of the size and proportion that you need. Alrighty, so I have an overall shape. I got the outline of the eye, I got the tear duct, I got the iris and the pupil and all that. Alrighty, now I'm going to start finalizing my lines. What's a really good idea for you guys is to draw along with me. So watch for a little bit, pause, and then you go and do. If you just watch the whole video and then go off on your own, you might forget some of the tips. So it's a really good idea to watch and then pause and do a little bit along with me. All right, what I'm gonna try and pay attention to right now, see how the inside of the lids right here come to this point, and it should align about the middle of the iris right here. Let's see if I did that right. Here's my point, bring it on over. Oh, see, that's a problem. That means I should go back and erase. Here is how you prove you're a real artist. You made a mistake, and you go back and erase to make it look better. That is how you become a good artist. So I gotta bring the point up to the center of the iris. Center of the iris. What I see a lot in high school art, kids will come to me, Miss, my artwork doesn't look like the picture. And I'll say, oh, well, here's your problem. That doesn't match your picture. And then what do you have to do? You go back and erase it. That's just what has to happen. That's how you set yourself apart, is using your critical eyes. Okay, does that match? No, it doesn't. All right, now I gotta go back and fix it. That's what sets you apart from the regular person. Alrighty. So now I've got a general idea. What I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start shading in some of the areas of darkness. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my shading pencil. I got a 5B pencil. I mean, this is a nice dark pencil. You can still use whatever pencil you're using, just if you're being fancy, our shading pencils are our B labeled pencils. Now to shade, what you want to do is you want a nice sharp point and you want to turn it on its side. You don't want to shade like doing this. That's going to be scratchy. It's going to be not realistic. It's going to take you a long time. Turn your pencil on its side. What I see is a lot of shading at the top right here of the eyeball. I'm going to turn my paper to make it a little easier for me to shade. And the key is to slowly build up layers. So right now I'm barely touching my paper. Barely touching. Barely there. Now that I have a buildup, I'm going to start going into my point and darkening. Again, the key is slow buildup of your shading. Okay, so I have areas of dark, medium, and light shadow. That's the goal, okay? Alrighty. I'm gonna focus on the inner part of the eye. Let's see, next dark part, let's get that pupil done. It should be nice and dark. Notice how I'm going over it multiple times in multiple different directions. That way you don't see the pencil stroke. You don't see those little scratchy lines in there. The goal is to make it nice and dark, okay? There we go. Alrighty. Next thing I want to do, see how I have these areas of highlight on here? I'm going to give myself a little roadmap by drawing little outlines here on where I need to keep it light. So I got that little triangle right there, that little triangle right there, a couple little triangles there. Alrighty, now I've given myself a roadmap. I start with the outside. Now I want to turn my pencil on its side. Notice how in the picture it's darker towards the edge, then it gets lighter. So what I can do, begin filling in that space, and again I want to avoid the center of those triangles. That's where my highlights are, that's what makes the eye look wet. Then towards these edges right here, I can build up my darkness. Okay. I'm gonna have to go back to that one with an eraser. So what I'm doing right now is I'm adding those stereotypical lines in the middle of the eye. So I'm just turning my pencil on its point, drawing some straight lines. I got some straight lines coming out of the center of the eye. I'm gonna grab my eraser and bring that highlight back. There we go. All right, making my edges darker. So here I'm pushing down really hard to make it nice and dark. Adding some of those lines. Okay. So what I'm noticing about these areas is they're not all pure white. So I'm gonna pick up my light pencil again. I'm gonna very lightly add in some details in there. Notice how you can see little stripes in there. So as a real artist, what you wanna do is you look at your picture and see if you can find all the details you possibly can, okay? See how I can see these little details of the lashes in here? Okay. I'm just using my lighter shader pencil over here. Okay, I'm getting there. What I want you to pay attention to is this area of super dark right here. So I'm going to take the point of my pencil, and I'm going to push down really, really hard to get that dark, dark area. One of the ways that really sets your artwork apart is having areas of super rich black on there. Sometimes we get afraid to go super dark. We don't want to, it's scary. We don't want to ruin it. But that darkness is what creates contrast, which is what's so interesting to our eyes. Okay, I also see that we have the reflection of the eyelashes on there. So I'm going to add some lines in there to show the eyelash reflection. See a little bit in here. Okay. Alrighty, I'm gonna focus on this area here next. So what I wanna do is highlight these little white spots right here. So I need a highlight right here, and a highlight right here. The reason why I do that, I want to avoid coloring in those areas. Having small sections of distinguishable white is what makes it look like the eye is wet, especially on this tear duct. So I'm going to start by very gently coloring in the whole section, except for those areas I outlined as my highlight. Okay. Now I'm going to pick up my shader pencil, and I have some dark shadows right here and around this bend. Okay. Now I'm going to pick up my light shader. I'm going to shade this part of the eye. So I already have this highlight drawn out. I'm going to add in this highlight in there as well. So it's right along this tear duct line, or this lower lid line right here. That's going to be my other area highlight. I'm going to go in and erase just the inside of that for a second. All right, that's my highlight. I'm going to use my light shader. I'm going to turn it on its side. I'm going to color in the whole eye. Now I know you're going to be thinking, oh miss, but that part of the eye is supposed to be white. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to color it light gray. The reason being is I want my white areas to stick out as super sparkly. If I look at this picture right here, that color and that color, that's not white. That's actually a fairly dark gray if I were to zoom in on just that area. So I want to make sure that I'm copying my picture and not just working off my brain. Now looking at my picture, I see that's a little darker in this area. So I'm going to focus some shadow by going back over this section over here a couple of times. Okay, now I'm going to go to this side over here. I see a highlight right here and a little highlight right here. So again, right along that lash line, and then right in here. Take my eraser, a little highlight, boom, there we go. Now if you wanted to be fancy, you see this very slim highlight right here. You can add that in there. That's kind of hard to do with pencil though. What I usually do is I take a white gel pen for those teeny tiny areas. That's how you get to be super advanced, is with a white gel pen. All right, turning my pencil on its side. All right, notice how I gotta be a little careful because I'm smudging some of my pencil everywhere. Okay, let me blow this off. Okay, back to work. Okay, here we go. Alrighty, so I see areas of shadow over here. So I'm gonna copy that, building up my layers of value. See a little bit over here. Okay. Notice how I have not blended with my finger at all. Totally possible. You do not have to blend with your finger. Alrighty, as I'm checking back with my picture, one of the things I notice is on the picture, this area in the tear duct is a lot darker than my area over here. If I look at mine, they look to be about the same. That tells me I gotta go in and darken this area a little bit more. Notice how I'm going in lots of different directions. That way you don't see my pencil stroke as much. I take my B, my Super 5 black B over here. There we go. Now that's closer in line with that. Darken this area. All right, cool. I'm gonna start shading this tear duct line right here. It's a very light gray, so I'm gonna take my lighter pencil, my B, or just be sure you're pressing lightly, and I'm very lightly coloring in this area. Okay. All right, now I got the lash line over here. So I'm gonna leave an area of highlight. See this highlight right here? I'm gonna leave a space. Okay. All right, now I'm gonna do the bottom lashes. Now to do the lashes, I wanna make sure you have a nice sharp pencil. Because I've been shading on its side, see how it sharpened itself to a really nice point? If you don't have a really nice point, sharpen it to a really nice point. I'm gonna go in and do the lashes. Now, we kind of get stuck with this idea. I'm gonna draw it down here. Lashes stick out like that, but lashes are curved. You wanna think of them like that. Also, they kind of go in clumps, and I like to think of those clumps as little triangles. So here we go. I'm gonna have them coming out of the lash line right here, not out of the eyeball. We don't want eyelashes in our eyeball. We want eyelashes in our eye. See how they're in little clumps together, like little triangles? That's our goal. Now I've noticed that after a little bit, see how it's starting to get a little light? That means my edge has gotten a little not pointy. I'm going to sharpen it again. Okay, there we go. I'm about to lose my point. All right, now I got my eyelashes on the bottom. Okay, so when you do the lashes, think of it like this. When you start on the right, they curve over here. As you move to the left, they curve over here. So those are the bottom lashes. All right, before I do my top lashes, I want to shade this upper lid right here. I'm going to use my dark pencil because I see lots of shadow underneath here where this crease is. So I'm going to turn my pencil on its side. So I'm pushing kind of hard towards the crease where I know it's super dark. Then as I get towards the eyeball, I'm barely touching the paper. It's almost like feather weighting across the top. To make that super dark line, I'm just pushing really, really hard. Okay, looking good. Now, as I'm looking over here in this tear duct, I see that there's shadow over here. It's a little bit dark, so I'm going to shade that in very lightly. Okay. Alrighty, time to do our upper eyelashes. I'm smoothing this out just a little bit. Okay. Now again, I want this pencil to be super pointy and sharp. I'm gonna sharpen it just to make sure. All right, super pointy. Alrighty. Now same thing with the top. We want our eyelashes on top to curve like that. So it's almost the flip side of these lashes. So curved like that. And I want you to notice how they go in little triangular clumps right here. And then we start by right a little bit above the eyeball. So we're going into the eyelid. We come down and back up. Come down and back up. Come down and back up. Alrighty. So a little bit above the eye. Come down, back up. Come down, back up. Come down, back up. Notice how we're going up above the crease over here, so I need to get mine a little bit taller. Okay, now I need to sharpen my pencil again because it's gotten a little dull. Alright, now, well, it looks super weird. See how it's twisted? Alright, that should be better. Notice how we're starting to curve in the opposite direction. And they're getting a little shorter. What I want you to really notice is how they're coming above the eye. Here's our eye right here. We don't want the eyelashes coming out of our eye. That'd be weird if we had eyelashes growing out of our eye. We want them coming out of the eyelid, which is a little bit above, right up here. You kind of seeing that a little bit? Let me darken this area, make that a little more obvious. Notice how we're doing a ton of eyelashes. Sometimes we get caught up where we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, call it a day, we're good to go. But we got tons of eyelashes. It's designed to keep sweat out of our eyes. So we gotta draw all of them. All right, now I'm gonna pick up my B. I'm gonna sharpen my B pencil so I have a nice point. I'm gonna darken up some of these roots right here, show some value. There we go. A couple more over here. Okay, and now we have our eyeball. So if I put this one right over here, it's about as good as we're gonna get for government work for your extra regular neighborhood art history teacher. So what I want you to do is this exact same thing. I want you drawing along with me to create that exact same eyeball, focusing on your value, focusing on how you're holding the pencil, focusing on matching that photograph. And you're gonna upload the picture of your eyeball to the hub. I'll darken some of these actually while I'm here. There we go. Alrighty, sign my work, woohoo! And you're done, you made it through. One more art project. Actually, I'm gonna darken a little bit at the bottom, I lied. As I'm looking at this drawing right here, I see that there's a lot of shading on the bottom. Okay, now I feel a little bit better about my work. Okay. Alrighty, I can't wait to see what you guys make. Adios!